Thanks for staying with us here on the Urban Debate. We move on to another burning issue, the fuel prices that seems to be on fire. If this was a few years ago, there would have been nationwide outrage about the kind of fuel prices we are looking at. Perhaps since a huge chunk of us are still in a lockdown state, just beginning to now come out, beginning to move a little, but still not as much. Perhaps because we are already not spending much money. We're trying to save whatever little we have because of the economic situation. We are not realizing. But in the city of Mumbai, 1 liter of petrol now costs us 101 rupees and 76 paise. Diesel costs us 93 rupees and 85 paise. That's the cost of diesel now. In the city of Delhi, petrol is now touching 95 rupees and 60 paise. Diesel also inching up. Let me actually tell you what has happened just in the last 1 month. In the last 1 month, since May 4th, there have been 22 price hikes. Since May 4th, there have been 22 days when petrol prices have gone up. Just this month, and it's 9th of June, just this month there have been 5 price hikes that have taken place. What is making this worse is the double whammy. Why is it that we are seeing such a big price rise since the month of January? The only breather we had was in the month of April. I don't need to tell you why, but if you remember, there were elections in this country around that time. Some states even cut the excise and taxes on the fuel at that time. Every other month, if you see, the prices have only inched up and further up and further up. A part of that is because of rise in taxes. For petrol, since January, the taxes, VAT, excise have gone up 4.5%. And of course, because the crude price is also going up, the overall jump has been 12.9%. In diesel, the taxes have gone up 3.7%. And overall, again, because crude is going up, 15.5% rise in the retail selling price of diesel. Now, this is not just simply a debate about whether we should cut prices, how should we cut prices. I want to talk about the larger picture. I want to talk about the fact that India has just about to come out, is just beginning to come out of the second wave. We've just seen the cases fall below 1 lakh on a daily basis. We're still reeling under the impact of that. The states are just about beginning to unlock. At such a time, can we afford to have such high prices? When the fuel prices are so high, everything else becomes costlier. Everything else becomes costlier. Your food becomes costlier. Your travel becomes costlier. Any other product that you buy in the market becomes costlier, because to make it, to transport it, you need fuel. And so you will end up paying a lot more for everything else. It's not just about filling petrol in your car tank or your two-wheeler tank. So do we need to relook at this pricing strategy, considering that our economy is already in the dumps and we are hoping now as we unlock some revival happens? That's the larger context to this debate. As I say good evening to the panelists who are joining us on this conversation. Dr. Sameer Kagalkar, spokesperson for the BJP from Karnataka, joins us this evening. Gurdeep Singh Sappal, national spokesperson for the Congress Party. Professor Arun Kumar, chair professor for the Institute of Social Sciences, joins us this evening as well. Raghuveer Srinivasan, editor for Business Line with us, and Balwant Singh, chairman for the Core Committee and former president of the All India Motor Transport Congress, joins us this evening as well. Professor Kumar, let me start off with you. To add to what I said, in the larger scheme of things, can we at this point afford to have high fuel prices and thereby higher inflation?
So, Tanvi, you're right. This is not the right time for a basic good price to be raised as much as it has been raised. The problem began last year because of the lockdown and the closure of the economy. The petroleum goods started bearing very high taxes, both VAT from the states and the excise duty from the center. They were raised. So in spite of the crude oil prices coming down, prices in India kept rising. Now on that base, now as the crude prices are rising because global demand is increasing, the world economy is coming out of the recession that it has been in. So commodity prices are rising and crude prices are rising, and correspondingly here also the prices are rising. Again, because of lockdown, I think the resources will be short and the deficit will be rising. And that's why I think the state government and the central government are not willing to cut back on taxes. And that's why it is happening. Now, this is a double whammy for the consumers because, on the one hand, they've lost incomes, they've lost work, and therefore their budget is down. On the other hand, as you said, all prices will rise because petroleum goods are basic prices. So they feed into prices of everything. As you said, transportation is required in farming, diesel is required, fertilizers are required, and all those prices have been rising. So therefore, in a sense, having inflation at the time when the economy is just about coming out is the worst thing that you can do because it will slow down the revival of the economy. So in a sense, we have to be very careful about these prices and think about where else we can raise resources for the budget and for the health sector. It's not that this is the only place that you can raise resources. There are so many other things that can be done, like for instance, in terms of direct taxes. Direct taxes will fall only on the well-off sections. You see the stock markets doing very well. So a lot of people are making a lot of money over there. So there are other sources of funds, and the center can cut back on its excise duty, and states can cut back on the VAT, provided the states get more funds from the center. Unfortunately, what is happening is the center has been very tardy in transferring funds to the states. So states' position is quite precarious. And that's why I think the states will not be able to cut back on their VAT. It's the center which will have to take the initiative to cut back on excise duties and also transfer more funds to the states so that they can meet their health costs.
Yes, and just to add another aspect to it, Raghuveer, it probably the government has another reason to not do so, or another reason that they will give us when they talk about needing the money and spending it on people is now that the whole vaccination burden is being taken on by the center. But like Professor Arun Kumar was saying, Raghuveer, we need to find other better ways of raising funds rather than just raising taxes, and not just the center, even the states.
Yeah, I'm not able to hear you.
Mr. Srinivasan, can you hear me?
Yeah, can I speak now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so your question is, are there alternative sources of revenues that the government has apart from petrol and diesel? That's your question, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course there are alternative sources, and Professor Arun Kumar is right when he says that indirect taxes are regressive, especially fuel taxes or whatever you talk in terms of VAT or sales tax. They are regressive taxes because they tax the poor and the rich in the same manner, unlike direct taxes, which can be graded according to the incomes of the taxpayer. But that said, whichever country you take, fuel taxes are the easiest to adjust and to increase when the government is in need of revenue. I don't think you'll find too many countries, except probably those which produce crude oil, like in the Middle East or elsewhere, where taxes are either zero or absolutely minimal. In India, just to give you some numbers so that you get a perspective, in the last financial year, 2020-21, fuel taxes, that is excise duties, accounted for 3.89 lakh crore revenues, which is the highest in the last 7 years. That is about 40% of total indirect tax revenues. So the government of India gets 40% of its total indirect tax revenues from petrol, diesel, and other fuels. And if you take the total taxes, revenues of the center, these taxes, the fuel taxes, account for 20%. Now, which government will be able to forget the political hue, whether it is a Congress or the BJP, it doesn't matter. Which government can adjust 20% of its tax revenues with other sources? It's not so easy. It's extremely difficult. But that said, it is indeed a worry that fuel prices are rising every day, and with global crude oil prices set to rise even further, the prospects of future increases in the retail selling price of petrol and diesel is very high. It may go well past 100 rupees. We are now protesting 100 rupees, but 100 rupees could look cheap in the days ahead if crude oil prices continue to rise. So in that context, this feeds into inflation from a macroeconomic perspective. Fuel prices feed into inflation. The concept called as imported inflation. Your total inflation will start rising. Again, to give you numbers, in April 21, consumer price inflation was 4.29%, and much ado was made about how it is under control, how it is not rising. But the fact is that fuel and light inflation in April 21 was 7.92%. It's almost double that of overall consumer price inflation. So this is indeed a major worry for the central government from a macroeconomic perspective. But how do you handle it is a question that needs to be addressed in a very nuanced manner, because these taxes are contributed both by center and the states. It's not the central government alone which is taking the taxes.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's not the central government alone. The states will have to play their part as well, because right now, all governments, state or center, seem to be functioning on similar lines, that when they need more money, they increase the taxes on fuel. But that is problematic. Dr. Samir Kagalkar, can we really continue to say, oh, crude oil is going up, so the prices are going up? What can we do? At what point will we say, no, we must do something, because it's now beginning to hit our economy?
Yeah, thanks so much, Raghuveer, for putting things in perspective. To answer the query as to what is the next step, the Finance Minister Nirmala Ji has been very forthcoming in a statement saying that the Government of India is willing to have a discussion, a very detailed discussion with respect to the kind of taxes that's been imposed on the fuel, right? So it is a collective call that the federal structure needs to take. All the states need to come on board. The Government of India has taken the first step in terms of being very, very vocally acceptable to be a part of the discussion and taking the collective decision ahead. Number one. Number two, the point that we raised is the tax on the fuel the only or the major source of resource generation? Is there any other means by which the Government of India can probably look at more resource generation, which is a key thing, given the kind of a once-in-a-century pandemic that we're going through, the kind of social welfare schemes that become all the more important. They are always important. Now they become all the more important in the kind of a situation that we are in. The government is leaving no stone unturned in terms of ensuring that the revenue generation increases on the one hand. Just to give some numbers, notwithstanding the first wave and the dip in the economy, the kind of a push that was given to the businesses to improve, to strengthen, and come back with a V-shaped recovery, since last October 2020 onwards, we have had a situation wherein each month, every month, we've been having a 1 lakh crore plus of GST collection. The government is making sure that the ease of business is increased. At the same time, the GST collections go up so that the good amount of revenue collection can happen. But for the last month's lockdown, we had a 1.42 lakh crore of revenue generation in the last month, in the month of April, right? That's on the one part. On the other hand, the government, keeping in its own principle of privatizing the non-core, the non-key sectors, looking at privatizing, let's say, from an LIC, for instance, expected to generate about 1 lakh crore rupees. That's one. Probably put across on the block, some of the banks on the privatization mode generating further amount of revenue. That's one part. That said, the finance minister has repeatedly made the statement, the Government of India stands by it, that the government will open its purse beyond whatever is required in terms of incurring a higher fiscal deficit to ensure that the blow that's on the country is softened, right? While there is an increase in fuel, while there is an increase in terms of the pocket spend that happens from the middleman, from the common man, at the same time, the Government of India is extremely considerate and sensitive to the fact that it needs to stand with sufficient amount of resources for the more.
So let me ask you this, Dr. Kagalkar. You're putting across two different points here. Let me ask you this. don't you believe that the government will any which way need to spend a lot more money this time? A second straight year where the economy is going to be in the dumps, where there are repeated localized lockdowns which are taking place, which have hit our economy. The government will have to spend more money. Private investors and companies are not going to do that. There are no businesses right now that are looking to put in money and invest right now. Now, what is the point that to make that argument when we're talking about fuel and high fuel prices, which impacts consumption, which impacts inflation and everything else? It's just making the scenario worse. So what you were any which way is going to do is not going to be a solution for this new problem.
Take the point once again on a holistic note on the fuel. I mean, I'll very specifically take the point raised by both Professor as well as Raghuveer. You're talking of the inflation hitting the roof because there is an increase in fuel, right? That's one part of it. If you look at the overall mobility sector, there are two sectors. One is the goods and not the services, the goods transportation, the goods mobility sector. The second sector happens to be the bigger city within intercity personal mobility, right? If you look at the kind of push that the government of India has given on the mobility part, be it increasing the number of roads, the kilometerage of the roads, and bringing in a lot of improvements. For example, take the case of fast tags. Small improvement, but technologically, it goes a real long way in terms of bringing a higher productivity and therefore a higher mileage. What does this impact? In terms of the transporter, what earlier incurred a bigger loss, that's reduced to a very large extent. That's part one. Second thing, if you were to historically look at the kind of an inflation, right from 2013 till about now, from where it had hit a high of about 10.9 or 11%, we have constantly made a very conscious effort to put it in the controlled range of 4 plus 2 minus kind of a thing, right? Even now as we are talking, Raghu did make a very good point, though the overall level, the well, but the government is seized of the matter, sensitive to the fact that it also needs to spend money, a good amount of money.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, the government needs to spend a good amount of money. At the same time, be sensitive to the fact that there is no inflationary spike. Both that balancing is something that's at the top of the mind of the government.
Something that is top of the mind of the government, but how will that take place? That's the big question. Let me just bring in our other two panelists as well, and Gurdeep Singh Sappal, to you first, because every time now we have the debate about fuel prices and reducing the taxes, essentially reducing the taxes on fuel, the BJP turns around and says, well, we've already said we're ready to discuss it in the GST meetings along with the states. Now, is the Congress party ready to do your part, ready to cut state taxes, ready to at least have a conversation on bringing fuel under GST and thereby simplifying the whole system altogether? Are you ready?
I'll answer to this. But first of all, we should stop calling it price rise. Now this is a price attack. There's an attack on common people which is happening. And at a time when the 97% people in CMIE study have reported a loss in income, and their 2.53 crore have been unemployed in last 5 months. So that is the situation in the country on which this price rise is being imposed. Now coming back to your question, you said Congress has taken a very clear-cut stand to bring petroleum products under GST. Congress party had held its press conference last month. Before that also we have been saying, but other than Congress party stand, what is the structure of GST Council? BJP is ruling half of the states. If BJP states and BJP in the center, they come to a conclusion, then who can stop them? They have the enough weightage of BJP ruled states plus the states of YSR Reddy, the states of Biju Janata Dal, they put together constitute enough weightage in GST Council to bring about a change. So this is only our excuse to put blame on other parties and not doing. Because BJP, why BJP is not doing it? The moot question is, when everybody knows that people cannot pay taxes, people cannot pay these high prices, these high prices is having a very severe impact on economy now, then why is BJP not giving up this course of action? Because BJP is confusing economics with accounts. They are only concerned with payment balance. They are only concerned with revenue. It's like Jamindar rule of British period. Tanvi, where the only way of collecting revenue was Lagan. So you are taking Lagan from people and you are not talking about economy. That is the problem today. You
No, so let me just say this. It's easier for you to sit here and say that the Congress party is ready to have this conversation, because I think everybody knows that none of the states have agreed to come to any kind of an pact on how it will come under GST. This conversation doesn't even come up in the GST
Congress
meetings.
party has
Every time
given
we
a
ask what
formal
happened, was
statement.
fuel discussed, was it doesn't get discussed. If the Congress party wants to send a signal that you're ready to have that conversation, start by rationalizing the state taxes. Why don't you start by doing that instead of protesting against high fuel prices? Give the relief to people by cutting your own state taxes.
As Professor Arun Kumar has said, states cannot do it on their own today. The volume of what is the weightage of taxes? 70% goes to center. The state is getting only 30% of it. So putting it on states is a excuse that BJP is saying. Congress party is on record demanding that petroleum products be brought under GST. Why is central government not reacting to it? That's my question. Central government has enough weightage in GST Council. Why is it not doing it?
Tanvi, want to sort of get in here. It's absolutely incorrect, factually incorrect
Yes.
to say that close.
Yes,
comes
Dr.
to-
Kagalkar.
I mean,
Yes.
it's an absolute white lie. I mean, it can't be. You have facts and figures. Thing is, it is not anything more than about 35% that the government gets, 40% that the government of India gets in, right? When you're looking at not only the state part that goes to the state and the central part, of which a bigger chunk is devolved to the states as well, right? So the 60% of the center's share remains with the center, while the entire 100% of the states plus the 40%, 42% from the centers come to the states, right? So the Congress friend needs to understand that it's not 70% that goes to the center. That's it. Let's keep it aside, right? As far as he also made a point saying that the government doesn't understand running an economy rather than doing an accounting perspective. It could probably be a very a poor joke, if I might want to sort of call it, right? If anything, the government has a very clear-cut, structured principle stand on how to sort of put the economy on a track, right? One thing is very clear: complete zero corruption. I mean, if you're looking at the DBT part of it, that is where, if anything, the most undebated aspect of the economic transformation. Arun Jaitley ji would repeatedly make the statement, I remember, that it is the DBT that is a big game changer. Assuming if you're a poor man receiving about 1,500 to 2,000 either as a pension or a social benefit from the government, of which 20%, 30%, Rajiv Gandhi ji once said 85% goes away from Delhi to village. Okay, let's just be very considerate to our Congress friends and say only 20-30% goes, and the amount of pain that they have to undergo to get even that remaining 70% of the 2,000. Versus today, wherein at the drop of a click of a button, you are getting your entire amount, whatever could be a 500, 1,000, 2,000 into your bank account without any amount of groveling in front of any other official or an elected leader, right? That small thing goes a long way. Why I'm trying to sort of bring this transformation is to state that the economy and its growth up to a $5 trillion economy. That is what the whole idea is. How do you do it? One, ensure that the social welfare is taken care of, right from Jan Dhan to Shauchalay to water to electricity. Janaushadhi, Ayushman Bharat on the one hand,
No.
and on the other hand.
So you're saying do all of these things but not reduce the fuel prices?
I'll respond to this. I'll respond to this.
Yeah, please. Let me finish. You please respond. On the other hand, ensure that the businesses are completely empowered and supported, so much so the ease of business rank has shot up drastically in the last 5 years, right? So the intent is very clear. Get the good amount of businesses to run, collect revenues, ensure that the social security is taken care of, and country as a whole prospers. This is our whole idea of running an economy. And by no stretch is this a Lagan kind of an economy that you assume in your own imagination.
No, Dr. Samir.
Okay, now I want to take this point forward, and I know two of our panelists also want to. Just give me some time, please. May I just go across to Bal Malkit Singh? He's not made his opening remarks, and I just want his comments to also come in here. Transport is a big part of what gets impacted, not just people travel, but also goods travel. The entire trucking, segment gets impacted as the fuels go up and up and up. Mr. Bal Malkit Singh, give us a sense of how the prices have moved and how that's going to impact the cost of everything that I'm buying.
Tanvi, thanks for inviting me for the show to highlight the issue faced by the road transport sector, in which 20 crore people of this country are associated directly, indirectly. The barometer of the economy can be measured by the wheels. If the wheel moves, economy moves. If the wheel moves in a higher pace, the economy moves in a faster pace. Now, wheels are ideal. 65% of vehicles are ideal. And we play an important role for the economy of the country. Any hike in the diesel prices impact us very badly. As such, 65% of our major component is the fuel prices. And fuel prices had its cascading effect from top to the bottom. With the hike in the fuel prices, other components like oil, lubes, grease, tires, spare part, everything goes up. During the normal time, when the demand is at peak, all our operating cost is worked out, and accordingly the freight is charged for the product. And for one product, multiple transportation is required, right from raw material to finished goods, distribution, retailers. And this is added to the product, as you are rightly stating, that it leads to the higher inflation. We don't understand what is the justification and what is the logic in hike of the daily prices. The cost for diesel is approximately, compared to the crude today, it's around 38 rupees, but we are paying 93, 94 paise. In the last 7 years, 460% taxes has been increased. And if the correction is not done and it is late, it is a question of our survival and sustainability. We are forcing a disaster in the road transport sector in which 20 crore people are associated. NPI are rising, there will be collateral seizure, there will be unemployment, supply chain will be badly affected in future, which will lead to inflation. Our operating cost has gone up by 15% with fuel, toll, labor, insurance, etc. And I will give you the figure कि ये सुना है कि डाकू डाका मारते थे, अब तो सरकारें खुलेआम नागरिकों के ऊपर डाका मार रही है. मई 2014 में क्रूड प्राइस was $105 per barrel. At that time, we were getting petrol at 71 rupees 41 paisa, diesel 56.71 paisa. And after 6 years, in December 2020, when the crude prices come down drastically to 47.58 per barrel, at that time, instead of giving benefit to the citizen and the road transport sector, the petrol prices were increased to 90 rupees 34 paisa and diesel to 80.51 paisa. And today the crude prices, it is at the level of August 2007. At that time, in August 2007, crude prices was $70. At that time, we were getting petrol at 43.52 paisa and diesel 30.48 paisa. And we feel that there is still room for reduction of rupees 40 per liter if the central reduce their excise duty and state should reduce their VAT taxes. We have been demanding since long that daily hike is not at all justified. It is impacting our trade very badly. Quarterly revision should be there. Petroleum prices should be brought under the ambit of the government. But now we feel that arrogance is at peak and all our representation pleas are before the blind, deaf and dumb administration. I would like to ask Dr. Sameer from BJP, कि सारा रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन सरकार ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर का खून चूस कर निकालेगी. अब तो हमने में खून चूसने के लिए भी नहीं रहा. जिंदा छोड़ोगे क्या नहीं, या मार कर दम लोगे? बस करो, बस हुआ, राहत दो. In the adverse circumstances during last lockdown, हमारे ड्राइवरों ने जान हथेली पर रखकर यह अनुसूचित किया कि देश के कोई भी नागरिक भूखा ना सोए. But we are being badly treated. What we have got in the return in the high fuel prices. तो एक तो महामारी से देश लड़ रहा है. I want to say, I would predict that ये महामारी से तो हमने काबू पा लिया, लेकिन आने वाले दिनों में अगर ये तेल की कीमतें कम नहीं आएगी तो इस उद्योग में बहुत बड़ी महामारी आएगी और ये देश के लिए बहुत घातक होगा। ना हमें कोई मोरेटोरियम की सुविधा मिली है, ना कोई हमें सॉफ्ट लोन है।
जी
If these 20 crore people are affected, which is the backbone of the economy, if the supply chain is totally stopped, you can imagine what will the situation will be coming in
Correct.
the future.
May I
Okay,
please?
before Dr. Kagalkar responds to that, Professor Kumar wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Professor Kumar, Arun Kumar.
Yeah. I think the BJP spokesperson has mentioned a lot of things that BJP has done in the past, and no doubt many things have been done. But the question is what's happening today. I think that's where we need to focus. That the price rise, as Mr. Singh has just explained, price rise is going to kill the economy because today we need to raise demand. The lockdown has brought down demand dramatically. If you look at the RBI's data, consumer confidence is down to 50, from 105, which was there in January, and capacity utilization in industry is down to 63% or even below that, because 63% was in January, and after lockdown would have come down further. So both investment and consumption are down. So today we need to look at demand. We how to raise demand, because that is how investment will revive, and that's how the consumption will lead to further increase in the investment. Without that, the economy will go further down and the rate of growth will go down further. And for that, we need to cut prices, because on the one hand, in the unorganized sector, people have lost incomes, people have lost work, and therefore they cannot demand. And therefore, their demand has to go up, and for that, prices have to be cut and employment has to be generated. Now, the question is, where can the resources come from? Because if the government wanted, it could cut excise duty now, so they don't have to wait for GST even. Forget GST. Today itself, you can cut excise duty and VAT and bring down the prices, which neither the state nor the center are willing to do. And states I can understand because they are short of resources. The transfer from the center has become less because of a lot of cess collection. Cess is not shared with the states, and that's why the collection by the center has been affected. So in this situation, where can extra resources be raised? And I think, the banking system has a lot of extra liquidity. About 4 lakh crore is being deposited with the RBI at reverse repo. That can be borrowed through COVID bonds. The people in the stock market have made billions of dollars. There your COVID bonds can be floated and money can be raised. What it will mean is the fiscal deficit will rise. But how does it matter? In the US, they've got a $1.9 trillion plus a $6 trillion plus earlier $2 trillion and $900 billion. They raised the fiscal deficit to 20-25% of GDP. So if our fiscal deficit rises to 10% or 12% financed by borrowing, how does it matter? So you can cut your indirect taxes and raise money elsewhere, spend and raise demand.
May I react also?
You gave a very, very good example here of how else can we raise money here. And those are the kind of options that the government needs to look at. The Reserve Bank of India is sitting at, at the kind of reserves that they have, one of the highest levels. And even though they've already given a large chunk as dividend to the government, if there's a possibility to do more, why not explore innovative steps like that rather than going to the same old? Yes, go ahead, please. Dr. Kagalkar, did you want to comment?
Yeah. Thanks so much.
wanted to comment.
One small point to what Mr. Singh spoke of,
Yes, and
It's
then
not
to
like-
Mr. Sappal, I'll come. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is, it's not just about that you are there from 2013 onwards, you read out data. Let me make it a small point that we were having a legacy burden of close to about 2 lakh crore rupees given in terms of oil bond by the previous government. That need to be cleared off, right? It's not just that you had a huge surplus sitting on top of the price rise that you're looking at. So that's point number one. Coming to what Professor made the point, I'm completely in agreement with him that the demand needs to be really stimulated. That's where the government has taken a very, very conscious and considerate step of putting good amount of money into the capex mode. I mean, as we are all understanding, capex is the one that can really have a huge multiplier impact in terms of revving up the economy. 100 rupees put as a capex will go to close to about 700 rupees in the next 4 to 5 years time. Just about in the same year, it will come back as 240, 250 rupees, and the remaining 4-5 years probably in the form of another 400 plus, right? So that is part one. Putting in good amount of money, 5.5 lakh crore rupees has been put in this budget to ensure that the capex goes up really big way. 100 lakh crore rupees for the infrastructure in the next 5 years. So these are the points that, as the professor rightly pointed out, demand stimulation is what is required in terms of restructuring the supply chain. That's point one. Point number two, if you don't have the required employment in terms of the hands of the people, no amount of giving money will be sufficient enough, right? So the whole idea of ensuring that there is a capability and the willingness to buy on the part of the common man is by ensuring that they get the job. Once again, we come back to the same point of demand stimulation through the capex mode. That said, in the immediate future, in the immediate term, making sure that the survival, that the immediate care of the people are taken care of, you go in for, let's say, about 80 crore people being given food grains for the next 6 to 8 months' time, making sure that the immediate need for survival is taken care of. There are other facilities in terms of the gas connection, the gas connectivity of the Jan Aushadhi or the Ayushman Bharat, which is a big chunk. Close to about 18,000 crore rupees came from Ayushman Bharat in the last 1 year, right? So if you're asking me, is there no other means of growth collection? Yes, there are, and the government is working on it. As Tanvi rightly pointed out, we are looking at taking the surplus from the RBI, as we are looking at the privatization, as the going of the IPO of a part of LIC.
Okay.
So mopping up across
Let me respond to this.
Well, I have a question for Mr. Srinivasan, but Gurdeep Singh Sappal wanted to come in. So yes, go ahead, please. Make your point.
Yes. There are few data being thrown around by BJP. Number one, he just said 2 lakh crore rupees burden from past. My dear friend from BJP doesn't realize that in last fiscal year, the additional revenue you generated from petroleum, increase in petroleum prices was more than 2 lakh crore. It was over and above the regular revenue. So how many times are you going to write off that burden from past? Number two, today also BJP leader said that we are investing on health. He also said that Ayushman Bharat is being invested. The total extra investment on health in this fiscal year is 26,000 crore, 35,000 crore on vaccines, and they have reduced the budgetary allocation by 9,000 crore since last year. So it is 26,000 crore, and you are earning more than 2 lakh crore this year additionally. You must, I'll also like to bring to your notice that the crude oil prices in January 2020, and after which they went down and again came up, the cumulative increase is 3.5%. And the increase in petroleum prices is 25%, near about 25%. For against a crude price increase of 3.5%, you have increased the burden to 25% on people. And then you are talking of increasing the economy, improvement of economy and increasing the employment. The fact remains that in this year itself, 2.5 crore people have lost their jobs. How do you read it? This is not a growing economy. The overall oil import is down to 20-year low. Your demand of oil has gone down. The industries are, as Professor Arun said, they're working at 63%.
But obviously, when your economy is contracting, but Mr. Sappal, yes. When the economy is contracting, what good is the oil going to really be? Now that situation hopefully will begin to change. We are hoping that as we emerge from second wave and prepare better for third wave when it hits us, that the economy can at least show some activity basis what happened the last couple of months and what has happened the last year. Mr. Raghuveer Srinivasan, final word to you. And again, forward looking in terms of options. It does seem that every indication from the government seems to have been that they're not looking at cutting the taxes on fuel to give any relief. Perhaps they will explore other methods of bringing about some relief if that happens. Yes, go ahead, please. Mr. Srinivasan, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah. I think the debate in the last half an hour has, not really come to the crux of the matter. Let's get real on this. There are no easy solutions. Whatever we look at is going to cause a pain somewhere. One of my, fellow panelists, I think from the road transport sector, demanded that in 2007, when crude prices were much higher, petrol was at 40 rupees. Now that was because the government was picking up a huge subsidy, and that subsidy burden was building up in the government's books. And over the years, it became very highly bloated, and it started causing fiscal problems. That is why from 2014, from 2012 itself, I think during the UPA 2 itself, the deregulation of fuel prices started. And under the NDA 1, it gathered momentum, and all subsidies on petrol and diesel have been taken away, which is why you see prices rising and fluctuating on a day-to-day basis. That's number one. Number two, we spoke about GST. Now, GST is not a panacea to the problem. We should understand this. Getting it under GST doesn't mean that taxes will come down and petrol prices will come down. Simple logic is that, for, as I said earlier, 40% of or 20% of the overall tax revenues of the government comes from petrol and diesel taxes. And for the states, it's anywhere between 40 and 50% of their own tax revenues, sometimes even higher than that if you take some of the smaller states. Now, even if you bring it under GST, the rate will be fixed in such a way that the states don't lose revenues and the center also doesn't lose revenues. So it is not as if you're going to get immediate solution to the problems if petrol and diesel are brought under GST, because it's not going to be that the center and the states are going to sacrifice their taxes. That's not going to happen. Practically speaking, that's not going to happen. That's the second point. And the third point, we spoke about how there can be other sources of financing like COVID bonds or getting the RBI to give money, more money.
Yes.
Now, the second option of getting the RBI to give more money is, I think, a very, very dangerous option. Even this high dividends that the RBI has been paying over the last 3-4 years, to my mind, is not advisable at all from a conservative accounting perspective. The RBI is the lender of the last resort for the economy, and it needs to have a strong and solid balance sheet, which means reserves have to be very high and, covering all your eventualities that the country might face. It doesn't make sense to take money which will be otherwise going to the reserve and give it to the government for revenue spending. So that option is not on. So COVID bonds, I think Professor Arun Kumar recommended that and said it doesn't matter if fiscal deficit goes up. COVID bonds are an option which is being considered, which I think is most economists are advising. But the problem again with going for bond issuances by the center, sovereign bond issuance, is that fiscal deficit will go up to high levels, but that will also lead to adverse reaction from the international rating agencies. So your country rating is just a little above junk bond level. Now, if fiscal deficit goes unsustainable levels and the macroeconomic indicators start flashing red, I'm sure the likes of Standard & Poor's and Moody's will take adverse look at it, and your country rating will suffer. So as I said, whichever way you look at it, it's not an easy option before the government right now. I would hate to be in the seat of Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman at this point, but I'm sure some amount of paying can be reduced if only the states and the center are able to sit and talk like mature individuals and not play politics over this matter. We have seen how the GST Council discussions have been hijacked.
May I speak for a few seconds?
Yes, but I wish.
Few seconds.
No, I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time, so I will have to wrap it up at this point. I just want to say, while I completely agree with what Mr. Srinivasan is saying, and I hope the states and the center get together, we only get sound bites of union ministers and state ministers and political parties saying, oh, they all want to have a conversation about how to fix this problem and reduce taxes in a manner that where both share responsibility and both share burden, or bring it under GST. But nothing seems to be moving. These are just commentary that comes in terms of intent, and then politics happens and no change takes place. So I completely agree with Mr. Srinivasan on that front. Fact of the matter is, viewers, the scenario is extremely complicated. There is no easy answer. There is no easy answer to when your economy was already down from 8% to 4%, and then a pandemic hits you for one whole year where your economy begins to contract. It's not growing. The country's economy is not growing. It was contracting. And then you saw that take place for two quarters. Then just about when you thought that things are going to improve, businesses resume operations, things begin to look slightly better, the second wave hits us. So there are no easy answers to the position where we are right now. But there needs to be first an acknowledgement of how tricky it is, and that fuel prices at this level are going to further impact our economy, are going to further impact the consumer demand, are going to bring in a problem of high prices and inflation that impacts everything else. And are we prepared to battle this? Do we have a plan ready? Or will we go through 6 months of pain, then wake up to it and say, okay, what can be done about it? That's the question that the government needs to answer. Thank you so much to all of the experts for joining us on this conversation.